really the true greats are not arrogant. They're actually very humble. And that humility and that hunger is what makes them great. And so there's no philosophy, no religion, no school of thought that's like, ego makes you better.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast with Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
Today on Spartan Up, Joe Sena sits down with Ryan Holiday, author of The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, in his latest book, The Lives of the Stoics. He says philosophy, it's not just for books, it's for life. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Lumen Metabolism Tracker, the first device to track your metabolism and provide daily, personalized nutrition plans for peak performance. Visit lumen.me to order and use the code Spartan50 for $50 off.
All right, guys, here we go. Joe Sena here for Spartan Up podcast. I got Ryan Holiday, superstar, Obstacle is the Way guy here. This is unbelievable. You and I met each other. Where were we? California. We were in Malibu together.
Yes.
And some event we had going on. And we were mingling. I can't even believe I could say this at a cocktail party. I don't go to cocktail parties. I had my kettlebell with me, though.
Feels like it was forever ago.
That was forever ago. And so I'm the obstacle guy, and you're the Obstacle is the Way guy. How many books have you written?
I think this is 10. I think it's 10.
And what's the goal? Are you shooting for 100, or like what's the record?
No, I don't know if there's a record. There's probably a number that's too many, although I don't know what that number is. For me, I think, so it's two things. One, I always like to be writing. Like I like writing books more than I like releasing books. So I actually enjoy the process of it. And then, I feel like I have stuff left to say. So I'm just, I show up every day and I write, and books come out the other side, basically.
I like it. I mean, that's the way life should be, right? If you like what you just do it until you don't like it anymore.
I'm actually like, so when I talk to writers or someone's like, hey, I'm doing a book. And then when I hear them say something like, and my goal is to sell X number of copies, or I want to hit this list or whatever, I'm actually usually, one, disappointed when I hear that. And two, it never tends to bode well because to me, writing is such a hard thing. You have to really, truly love it. And you have to, like, there's so many other ways to make money, to get ideas out in the world. To do a book for those reasons is to miss the point usually. And so it always is a red flag for me when I hear people's goals be sort of very transactional in that way. So I try to keep mine, it's like, every time I have an idea for a book that I think is worth doing, I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to let the chips fall where they may.
What's awesome about that is I was with a professor from Cambridge in the historic site in Sparta, Greece, because every year we have a big event in Sparta.
Sure.
And I was asking, give me the top 10 things the Spartans believed in, the ancient Spartans, right? I want to make sure we are aligned in our business with what the ancient Spartans, right? We're so woven together with that historic, we'll call it a brand, right? That history. And one of the things that really jumped out at me, which is exactly what you just said, is back then in the ancient world, and very much like today, because you just described it, folks were focused on legacy. And the Spartans said, time out, fuck legacy. Do a great job right now, and that'll come.
Yeah, I mean, and look, you think about what the famous 300 Spartans did, they knew they were going to lose, and they went anyway, right? And they went because they believed it was the right thing to do, and kind of because they believed it was the ultimate challenge. It was it was 1,000 against 1,000,000, and they went and they did it, and they stood their ground, and they touched a level of greatness, if only momentarily, that echoes down now for thousands of years. And the Spartan culture was just so transformatively different than even the Athenian culture. Like, the Spartans were basically in this kind of communist collective where everyone was basically equal, and everyone did the work, and not the work in the fields. They had a real up slavery system. But you know, the Spartans were equals, and what they cared about was excellence in the craft of their nation, which was ultimately, you know, war. But what they cared about was excellence, physical and moral excellence, and that's what created, you know, the ultimate legacy, which, you know, echoes down today.
Tell me if you disagree. Based on what you said, we should all live that way. We should just focus on being excellent at whatever the thing is we do, and like not have a policy of changing our principles depending on how we feel, right? Take a firm stance and hold it.
That's right. Well, look, for the Stoics, the big exercise was, is this something that's up to me or is it not up to me? And, you know, our individual performance, the effort that we bring, the ideas that we bring, the passion that we bring, you know, the work that we do, that's up to us. But the external results are not up to us. It's like, if I'm doing a Spartan race, I can give the one thing I control is whether I give 100% of my energy or not. I don't control whether 100% of my energy is 5 seconds faster than the other person who is also giving 100% of their energy. You know what I mean? Like, all we control is what we bring. And then, as I said earlier, like, the chips fall where they may. And so in a sense, there's kind of a resignation to that, to be like, look, I'm just going to do my best and see what happens. But there's also an empowerment to that, because you're like, I'm not going to waste any time or energy on these other things. Like, I don't care what other people say about me. I don't care whether people think I'm the best or not. I don't care whether people are counting me out. Like, what I care about is what I control, which is what I'm going to do today.
I work really fucking hard, and the result is what it is.
Yes. And I think one of the lucky things for me, having done 10 books, is like, you know, most authors, you know, they'll do maybe 1 or 2 books in their life. So, you know, there's so much riding on whether it works or not. And one of the things I've learned is that as I've done more and more books, and I've been lucky enough to work on books for other people and stuff, is it's like, oh, a lot of times the result has nothing to do with you. You can do your absolute best work, and for whatever reason, people don't get it. And then you can do something that you just throw out there, and, you know, it works on this crazy level. So you kind of also get some humility that, like, these things that you think are actually sort of signs or proof that you were successful are actually really meaningless and really arbitrary in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't know if this applies to what you're saying, but I don't remember the football team. Might have been the Patriots, whatever. They had won the game. And the story goes that they came into the locker room and the coach, maybe it was Belichick, started screaming at them, and they're confused. They're like, I don't understand. We won. The external scoreboard said we won. And he's like, I don't care about the external scoreboard. I care about the internal scoreboard. We didn't do this right. We didn't do that right. So win or lose, right? Focus on, did we do what we were supposed to do?
No, I was lucky enough a few years ago, I gave a talk to the University of Alabama football team about that very idea. And Saban is famous for that. He's like, when I'm miserable on the sideline and we're up by 30 points, it's not because I'm incapable of being happy. It's because I understand that we're not actually doing as well as we could be. And so on the one hand, that feels a little, you know, you're like, oh, that feels like wrong somehow. But where that protects you also is, you know, there's equally famous stories about Saban where he's won a national championship and he's stepping out of the celebratory dinner to go make a recruiting call. So you want to be in a place where the wins don't go to your head, but then also the losses don't go to your head either, because you know what you did is what matters, and you're kind of riding your own definition of success. For me, like, you know, when The Obstacle Is the Way came out, it sold well at first. It did okay, but it didn't hit the bestseller list for 5 years, or maybe 6 years. So, you know, if I had let the bestseller list determine whether that book was a success or not only would that have crushed me and been really unpleasant, but I don't think I would have written the other books that I wrote in that other period, because I would have seen myself as a failure of some kind.
And did the Stoics, is that basically not just a Spartan mentality? That was a Stoic mentality.
Yeah. Look, for the Stoics, it really only mattered. It really was only worth anything if it was up to you. So Marcus Aurelius, he's talking about how he's the emperor. He's like, look, like these people clap for everyone. It doesn't make me special, And he says, like, so I have this money. What, I didn't earn it, And he's like, he says, like, the only thing that matters is good character and works for the common good. And so I think that's like, you could be the most successful person in the world at your field, but if you make the world a worse place because of that success, like, is that winning? I don't think so.
I love that. All right, let's go through the list of books.
All right.
Wrote, Lives of the Stoics.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just give a couple of sentences on what that book is about, which I assume it's everything we've been talking about.
Yeah. So the premise of Lives of the Stoics, that's the new one, is like, philosophy is not what you say, it's what you do. So what was the lives of these philosophers actually like? How did they live these ideas? Like Marcus Aurelius could say everything he wants about being a good person, but then when he becomes the absolute ruler of the largest empire in the world, how did he manage to actually stand up to that challenge? And so that's what I'm really interested in is what did the philosophers do as opposed to what did the philosophers say?
Is it true Seneca, who I guess was an advisor to Nero?
Yes.
I had read somewhere he used to spend some time. He was very wealthy, if I have that right, and he used to spend some time in the streets like a bum, just to kind of level set. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So obviously, yeah. When we talk about what did the philosophers do, it's a little bit of a tricky business to have this great Stoic philosopher not only be the advisor to one of Rome's worst emperors, but to be like not just wealthy, but like obscenely wealthy. Like he would throw these Gatsby-esque parties, and that's not particularly Stoic. So there's, the charge against Seneca is that there's some sort of hypocrisy there. But his point was money doesn't mean anything, provided that the money doesn't mean anything to you, right? His point was like, I have the money, I might as well enjoy it, but it could go away tomorrow and I would be okay. And actually, one of the ways he made sure that was the case is that he practiced poverty. So he said 1 day a month, you should wear your worst clothes, sleep on the floor, eat, rough, cheap food, and just go like, oh, this isn't so bad. And his point was, sometimes you can get so used to your comfort level that you really become afraid of losing it. And then that makes you vulnerable. And that's the Stoics did not want to be vulnerable in that sense.
I love practice poverty. We always talk about practice adversity, which is a very, very similar statement, but practice poverty I like. All right, we're going to go through the books if it's okay with you.
Let's do it.
And we're going to do that. And then one sentence coming out of Lives of the Stoic that people could apply to their own lives: practice poverty.
Yeah.
The obstacle is the way.
So the premise of the obstacle is the way is that every difficult, problematic, unfortunate situation that you find yourself in presents some opportunity to practice a virtue or excellence. Might not be the one that you intended, but it's an opportunity nevertheless. So, Marcus Aurelius' point is the impediment to action advances action. What life throws at us is actually fuel if we decide to use it that way.
Yeah, I'm going through hell right now, right? With Spartan.
Sure.
And it was a lot easier in February. 325 events planned, 45 countries. We're finally getting our shit together. In 20 years of doing this, and it's a nightmare right now. I'd be lying to you if it's a nightmare, and it gets worse every day. The vice grip gets tighter. And my two senior executives looked at me today and said, "Why are you smiling?" And I just had to think for a minute. Like, you're right. Like, it fires me up, and it makes us smarter and sharper. And all the things we've been telling people about doing obstacles and practicing poverty or practicing like, it's good for you.
I think that's right. I mean, look, it's obviously easy to say that, and then it does kick your ass when you go through it, but you come out stronger on the other side. And I think one of the things I try to remind myself, I'm going through this with my business as well, is like, okay, what am I going to learn from this? That's one way to be better for it. And then also, what are things that I've wanted to do or thought it would be cool to try that under ordinary circumstances were just impossible? well, I'm going to use this as that chance, right? And so I'm sure you guys have had long fantasies about digital stuff and community stuff, and that it would have been insane to try to do instead of your events. Well, now you can't do your events, and so it is at the very least an opportunity to do those things. Doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it make up for it, but it's all you can do.
I agree. And so the takeaway there is in addition to practicing poverty, I recognize that the obstacles provide opportunity.
Yes, always. There's no obstacle so bad that there isn't some opportunity inside of it.
Next book, I think, is The Daily Stoic.
People don't wake up and go, I want to study philosophy. It's hard, right? And so what I try to do with The Daily Stoic is just have one page of Stoic philosophy you can read every day, just one idea from the Stoics. And then I've continued that. I do a free email every day for dailystoic.com that's just, hey, here's a lesson from the ancients applied to modern life. And so I think the takeaway from that book, and obviously I hope people check it out, but the main takeaway there is philosophy is not something you read once. It's an ongoing practice. It's a thing you engage with. And, Seneca's point is, he says, only those who make time for philosophy are truly alive. So if you're not making time in your life to study and read and learn and expand your horizons, like you're stuck and your life sucks. And so you got to make time for that study.
I wonder if you would agree with me though, but you also should exercise.
Of course. No, of course. My day is, I wake up in the morning, I go on a long walk, then I write, then I do all my administrative crap, then I play with my kids, and then I go for a long run, swim, or a bike ride. And I feel like, weirdly, it's actually those long exercises that a lot of the ideas that I was struggling with during the day suddenly clarify themselves.
It's funny, I was on Rogan recently, and I regret part of the conversation I had with him. He was explaining how a writer, Stephen King, who wrote Carrie, was like drugged out and drinking, and that's why we got this wonderful book. And I regret not saying to Joe, maybe he would have done a better book if he went for a 24-hour run. I mean, why do we have to do drugs and drinking?
I think that's right. And I think those books are much more the exception than the rule. And I mean, even Hemingway would say, you can write drunk, but you have to edit sober. And so, I think the idea of the tortured writer that doesn't take care of themselves is bullshit. Have you read the book, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running?
No. Does it say that?
Well, no. So Haruki Murakami is one of the great novelists of our times, but he's also a marathon runner and he loves running. And he wrote this book about sort of the connection between running and writing. And anyways, you would love this. The main sort of plot line of the book is he does, the famous marathon is when the Athenian army runs back from Marathon in full armor to Athens to defeat the Persians. And so he does that marathon in the book. It's really great.
Oh, that's awesome. And is he writes post running?
Knowing how to fuel up for peak performance can be a challenge for even the top Spartan athletes. That's why Lumen Metabolism Tracker is providing real-time insights on what you need to succeed. Today's Spartan Up episode is sponsored by Lumen, the first device of its kind to measure your metabolic fuel through the breath in seconds and provide daily nutrition plans and guidance for workouts. The Lumen device measures CO2 concentration in the breath to tell you if you're burning fats or carbs for fuel, and how to prepare before and after workouts based on your goals. Over time, Lumen provides insights on your metabolic flexibility, how easily your body can use fats or carbs for energy, and improves your metabolic efficiency, leaving you feeling better prepared for workouts with improved performance and faster recovery. It's all the technology of metabolic testing in a lab, but in the palm of your hand. In the morning or on the go, the pocket-sized Lumen Metabolism Tracker is a one-of-a-kind biohacking tool that's helped thousands of people, from professional athletes to bodybuilders to the everyday user, understand their metabolism and improve their metabolic health. Maximize your performance as a Spartan athlete. Know what to eat and when with Lumen. Order today at lumen.me and save $50 with the code Spartan50.
And anyways, you would love this. The main sort of plot line of the book is he does, the famous marathon is when the Athenian army runs back from Marathon in full armor to Athens to defeat the Persians. And so he does that marathon in the book. It's really great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And is he writes post running?
I think he runs in the afternoon, although I know a lot of other writers that run in the morning before they write.
All right. Next book, Stillness is the Key.
Yeah. So when we think stillness, we often think Eastern philosophy, but the premise of that book is actually the Stoics were all about stillness. But I find my stillness often running or swimming or being active. And so to me, stillness is when doesn't matter what the body's doing. It's about getting the mind and the heart and the spirit to a place where you've slowed down, where you're really connected, you're really locked in. And to me, that's where happiness comes from. That's where great ideas comes from. That's where all the things that make life living come from, that stillness. So the problem is we live in a society of smartphones and 24/7 news and doing, and we don't have enough of that.
I agree. And I'm so glad you said that because for years, people, my mom, my wife, my kid, like, slow down. And I think to myself, when I exercise, I do slow down.
Yes.
Even though it's hard to grasp that. So I'm glad a smart guy like yourself agrees with me. When I get to a place where I just want water, food, and shelter and some really physically challenging task, that's a very still place.
I think so. And I don't know about you. I mean, obviously lots of downsides with the pandemic, but like I haven't had to have a coffee meeting in 6 months. I haven't had to go to the airport in 6 months. I haven't had any fucking meetings in 6 months. It's been quite wonderful. And I've realized the cost of my busyness. You know what I mean? I've been so much more productive. I've been so much happier. My ideas have been better. I've made a lot of great decisions the last 6 months that I just wasn't in a place to make when I was saying yes, yes, yes to all the opportunities that I had.
Agreed. Same page. Ego is the enemy.
Well, that one's pretty straightforward, but I'm sure I know you deal with some of the best people in the world at their field. And what you find, really the true greats are not arrogant. They're actually very humble. And that humility and that hunger is what makes them great. And so there's no philosophy, no religion, no school of thought that's like, ego makes you better. We know ego is a fragile thing. And yet we live in a culture in a time where ego is everywhere and it's very tempting. And so I wanted to talk about, how do you keep the ego in check and what do you get when you remove ego? I don't think you get, people go, but won't that make you weak? To me, when you remove ego, what's left is real confidence. And I think that's more important.
Does that idea of removing the ego tie back to your idea of like forgetting the result and focusing on?
Totally. I have a chapter in Ego is the Enemy called The Effort is Enough. If your self-worth is determined by, your net worth, by the returns of the stock market on a given day, by whether, you had the #1 album in the country or not, the reality is you're going to wake up a lot of days and feel like shit. You know what I mean? Because somebody else is in control of your happiness. And, it's like every time I go for a run, I feel better after because I set out to do a thing and it was up to me whether I did it or not, And that's, I think the more things you have like that in your life, the better.
There's a lot of fighters that I meet in my trade somehow, a lot of Navy SEALs, a lot of Delta, a lot of wrestlers, Olympic, and they have a lot less ego than you would think.
Totally. I think it's because they know it's the egotistical people who get their ass kicked when they least expect it because it's weak. Like the prize fighter that goes into the ring convinced that they're unbeatable has overlooked weaknesses that their opponent is going to exploit. You know what I mean? Like you want to be thinking about the weaknesses of the other person and about protecting your own weaknesses. That's the mindset that helps you win.
Yeah, you remove the ego. I like that. You start to notice your blind spots.
Yes.
All right, conspiracy.
So Conspiracy is a weird book. It's different than my other books, but I wanted to look at, it's basically the story of the billionaire Peter Thiel, who I think you may have met at that same event.
Yeah, yeah.
Peter is, I think, one of the most fascinating figures of our time, but he spent 10 or so years basically plotting to destroy this media outlet that had outed him as gay. And so it's a story of like, how does it's a story, unlike my other books, but it's a story of how somebody did kind of an impossible thing right under everyone's noses. And what does it take to pull something like that off? So it's so far, it's my only book that's being turned into a movie, and it's just a different kind of book for me. But the reason I did it was a challenge, and I wanted to do something very different just to see if I could.
That's awesome. Trust me, I'm lying.
So in 2012, if you can believe it, I wrote a book about how fake news is created. Not the Donald Trump, just call anything you don't like fake news, but like, where does misinformation, where do rumors, how is propaganda created? How is misinformation spread? All the things that Russia did in the 2016 election, I was talking about how those tactics work. So again, a good example of a book sort of kind of before its time. It did okay when it came out, but it's sort of now it's taught in all these colleges and stuff like that. But it was my first book, and what I wanted to do was kind of rip back the curtain on how media works.
Lately, I've been thinking, and you tell me what you think. Pretty simple idea. I guess we get fed, our devices know what we're interested in, so just keep feeding us. We're in an echo chamber, basically,
Yes.
just hearing and seeing the same stuff over and over. Wouldn't it be awesome if we were mandated to hear the other side for 30 minutes a day?
So that used to actually be the law in this country. So the FCC, when there's only television networks, the FCC regulated who had access to the airwaves. And so there was a thing called the Fairness Doctrine. And it said, like, if you had the Democratic candidate on your show for 5 minutes, you were legally obligated by like the next day to have the Republican candidate on for 5 minutes. And yeah, I think one of the reasons our news environment is so lopsided these days, it's not even a partisan thing. It's just like, whoever's the most interesting, provocative, controversial gets all the attention. But as you know, in business, it's usually the boring people who know what they're doing, who have who have the important details on lock. And obviously, you need a charismatic CEO, or you need to do compelling marketing from time to time. But like, you also need you need smart operators who can tell you what the hell's going on. And I think as a media culture, because we live in a system that's driven by what gets the most attention, we only hear about the worst, most ridiculous, controversial things.
We got to go back to the old way. I didn't realize.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think just everyone should just consume way less news and read more books, but
or crawl barbed wire more. I mean, if you and I believed in two different things, but we went under the barbed wire together, we'd resolve our issues pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, I think, yeah, that's the other thing is people live in this world where Democrats are coming for you and they're going to steal your stuff. And then Republicans want to tear down this, and it's like, have you ever actually met any of these people? Like, they're all totally normal, and everyone wants basically the exact same thing.
All right, next book, Perennial Seller.
Yeah, so I wrote that book, which is about, it's about how do you make stuff that lasts? Like, how long has Spartan Race been around?
Well, 20 years under one name and 20 years, 10 years under one name, 10 years under Spartan.
So I'm fascinated. Like, I'm sure every year for those 20 years, you've heard about the next big thing, the new thing. And where are all those companies now? Most of them don't even exist. And it's the same thing with writing. The reality is the vast majority of books that are sold are not new releases. Same with the music industry. Catalog albums outsell new releases. The vast majority of streams, reviews, it's new. It's not new things. It's old things. And yet we spend all our energy chasing, copying, trying to be louder than the new thing. And so when I write my books, I'm trying to write a book that will last for 20 years or 100 years. And so because of my marketing background, everyone's question is like, I want to hit the bestseller list. And it's like, you're missing the point. Like, you don't want to be the best. You don't want to be on the bestseller list. You want to sell the best forever, and people just miss the point. So it's about like sort of what goes into classic stuff.
You ever read the book A Message to Garcia?
No.
All right, you gotta write it down.
I'm writing this down.
And send me, if you don't mind, send me an email or something and let me know what. But and I might screw this up for everybody listening, but it was written in the late 1800s, like really late 1800s, just before the turn of the century. I believe it sold 50 million copies.
Okay.
50 million copies. And I think it was written by L. Ron Hubbard's dad.
Interesting.
The Dianetics guy.
Yeah. Scientology?
His dad was a salesman.
Okay.
All the stuff we're struggling with, which I believe is stuff you write about in here that we're talking about, it was just driving him nuts that people were getting softer. They need a little more stoic lifestyle. And so he just describes what that perfect personality would be.
Interesting.
And the character's name in the book is Rowan. And so we refer to it a lot in the Spartan ecosystem as a message to Garcia. I don't know. I thought about it simply because I don't think the guy intended to sell 50 million copies. I think he just wanted to get a message out there.
No, right? I'm gonna check it out. I love that. And yeah, I think, we're always like, Star Wars is not a great movie because of its cutting edge, special effects. That's not why people are taking their grandkids to see the original Star Wars. Star Wars is great because it's based on the hero's journey. You know what I mean? Like the Spartan ethos, like of the original Spartans, is so good that you guys are adopting it in a business 2,500 years later. But like, my books are based on Stoic philosophy, a 2,000-year-old philosophy. When something works, it works. But the problem is we always want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then, is this a book or is this part of the perennial seller, growth hacker marketing?
No, that was one of my early books. I wrote a book on growth hacking, which is also, just because I'm saying it's important to make a classic and not enough people do that, marketing is still essential. And so I did a book, was like, well, how do the Facebooks of the world and the Ubers of the world, how did the Airbnbs of the world, how did some of these some of these companies, which are the fastest growing companies in history, how do they do it? And how do they do it basically with no advertising budget whatsoever? And I'm sure with you, like you built this, you built that company up from its bootstraps. You didn't raise $200 million in venture capital and just, put ads on TV. That's not how you do it. You create an engine that grows itself. And so it's an analysis of how companies grow in this sort of new startup mentality.
It fascinates me because I know how hard it is to have a company that doesn't grow that fast.
Yes.
I can't even imagine raising that kind of money, throwing stuff at the wall, burning. I just can't even imagine how it has been a battle for us to do what we did. And we're like a pimp compared to, these big companies.
Totally. No, I think you always want to look at the people who have broken the mold, because that's where you learn the lessons. And so I wanted to look at a lot of these companies, like Facebook, didn't even have a marketing department for the first several years. They had a growth department. And even that distinction is really interesting to me, because we think marketing and growth are the same things, but they're not. Marketing is like, hey, we printed up these t-shirts and we were going to give them out. Growth says, did it get any new customers? And so I think the emphasis on growth is something I think about with my books, with my businesses, is like, how is this growing the business? And is it growing the business? Yes or no?
One of the things I try to say to the team, and it's hard for people to grasp, is let's focus on momentum over margin.
Yes.
Understand we need to make money. Like, yes, we need to make money, but we need momentum. We need scale matters. I'm trying to get a lot of people through these races. When we announce that we're going to put on an event, for example, whether there's one person there or 10,000 people there, we got to put on the event.
Yeah, right.
So, right. It's like, so we need people there. So momentum over margin.
No, that's the same. It's the same as a writer. It's like you can edit pages, but if you don't produce the pages, there's nothing to edit. So you got to be moving forward always.
Journaling, one of your things?
Yeah. So I did a journal based on the Daily Stoic called the Daily Stoic Journal, but I journal every single day. So my routine is I wake up early, I take my kids for a walk, I take a shower, I journal, and not until I've done all those things will I even consider touching my phone. I want to have like sort of quiet, reflective time in the morning, or else my whole day suffers.
I like it. I'm working on the discipline. I'm embarrassed I'm even saying I'm working on the discipline of not looking at my phone. I got to work on that.
So for me, the rule is you don't sleep with your phone in the room, and then you go out and you do something right away that you don't take the phone with you. And then it's not a part of the routine.
I'm going to go to Best Buy and I'm going to buy an old-fashioned analog alarm clock because I wake up early and I need that little buzz. And then so I can keep the phone away. And then I need music when I do my workout. So I'll keep the phone away from I got to do that today.
Yeah.
You've provided the impetus for that. Journaling. So we got to start journaling. What's more important we talked about it earlier about the mind. Is it mind, body, soul? Is it the combination of the three? It always drove me nuts as a kid to see a really successful businessman or woman that was not taking care of themselves. You mentioned it, a writer that's really successful doesn't take care of themselves. What's more important?
I don't think it's like, I don't think either one is more important, but they multiply to create, to create who you're going to be. So yeah, to me, taking care of yourself physically makes you better at work. And, a lot of the same assets that make you good at work can be applied towards whatever physical pursuit you're in. There's a Latin saying, I forget what it is, but it's, a strong mind and a sound body is the balance you're trying to get. And I think, Theodore Roosevelt's a great example of a brilliant intellectual guy who also, pursues the strenuous life, as he calls it. You got to have both.
I love it. I push my kids pretty damn hard. My wife and neighbors think I'm nuts. My in-laws, everybody thinks I'm nuts, but I am trying to, I like that, a sound mind and a strong body. What other advice would you have for folks? I mean, they know your 10 books. They got a little snippet from each one. We know your morning routine. Keep the phone away. Do your journaling. Do you take cold showers?
I do from time to time, not as often as I probably should, but I appreciate the Stoic exercise of it, certainly. I do intermittent fasting. So yeah, I think all these, for the Stoics, they're like, hey, look, obviously exercise is important, but Seneca has this great line. He's like, hey, if you eat better, you won't have to spend so much time working it off, and then you'll have more time for philosophy, So the Stoics were really active, people, and they wrestled and they boxed and they hunted and they did all the stuff that we still think about today, and they studied philosophy. So I think it's important to realize, philosophy is not being this turtleneck university professor just talking about ideas. It's designed for the real world.
I don't know if you know this, on the farm in Vermont, we built a few cabins over the years, literally brick by brick, stone by stone, carrying stuff up on the mountain. And one of them's called the Philosopher's Cabin.
I love it.
Because the first guy that started was an aspiring philosopher. Second guy worked on his philosopher. So you might need to come put the last nail in.
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be awesome? It's next to a river. It's something Seneca would have been proud of.
I know. I've got a little farm out here in Texas myself, so I love that life, and also it's to me a great way to have stillness.
All right, so here's one that came in hot off the presses from our audience. Is how do you manage your day? We talked about what you do in the morning, but how do you manage it?
So obviously, you know this, but having kids, it sort of can blow up your routine. You want to do it in this way, in this order, and having kids, it's it's always crazy. So what I really think about as far as my day are practices and then priorities. So again, my point is I get up early. That's a thing that I control. I get up early. Don't touch the phone right away. whether it's 2 hours or 1 hour or 25 minutes, it's less important to just like, don't start the day with the phone. And then the other big thing is like, I do the hard stuff up front. So I always do the writing or the thinking or the creative task in the morning. So there's not stuff like there's not excuses for not doing it later in the day. And then, like I used to work out in the afternoons, but now it doesn't work with the kids. So now I work out when they go to bed. So for me, it's like, I do the important stuff up front, sort of administrative, obligation stuff in the middle, like sort of afternoon of the day. Then I'm home to put them in bed, have dinner together, bath, whatever. And then it's like some me time where I work out. And then I always want to make sure I have time to do some reading and reflection at some point during the day as well.
I love it. And I think people would have a successful day. I know I have a successful day when you actually stick to it.
Yes.
And you do what you say you're going to do. I had a guy say to me, the standards don't change. And I've tried to live by that. Thanks for obliging us with this.
Appreciate it, man. No, I hope to see you in person at a race one day.
We will. I'm going to put in the Seneca obstacle, the poverty obstacle.
I love it.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Lumen Metabolism Tracker, the first device to track your metabolism and provide daily personalized nutrition plans for peak performance. Visit lumen.me to order and use the code Spartan50 for $50 off.